Surviving a nightmarish boarding school, getting tricked by a reporter and navigating the very public death of his big sister. You already know the story of Princess Diana, but her brother, Charles Spencer, has been through tragedy all his own. The younger two of 4 children, Diana and Charles Spencer were born into the life of wealth and privilege typical for British aristocrats. The siblings' childhood, however, was not as idyllic as one might assume. When they were still young, their parents' marriage crumbled and they witnessed heated arguments about their mother's affair with her future husband, Peter Kidd. In an interview with author Andrew Morton, Diana recalled once seeing her father slap her mother across the face, saying, "I was hiding behind the door and Mummy was crying. I remember Mummy crying an awful lot." Their mother eventually left when Diana was 5 years old and Charles was still an infant. Charles later told the Sunday Times, "Our father was a quiet and constant source of love, but our mother wasn't cut out for maternity. Not her fault. She couldn't do it. While she was packing her stuff to leave, she promised Diana she'd come back to see her. Diana used to wait on the doorstep for her, but she never came." Their parents divorced in 1969 when Charles was just 4. Their mother married Kidd later that year, while Charles and Diana continued to live at Althorp with their father. After his mother died in 2004 at the age of 68, Charles spoke of her to The Guardian and said, "At the same time, I think there was massive guilt, which manifested itself through alcoholism." Like the other Spencer siblings, Charles was sent away to boarding school when he was a child. In his memoir, A Very Private School, Spencer recounted the horrific abuse he experienced while attending Maidwell Hall, an upper-crust prep school in Northampton. At first, he felt an overwhelming sense of abandonment, but would soon discover that would be the least of his concerns, explaining in an interview with the Sunday Times, "We were like lambs led to the slaughter." Spencer described one headmaster who infused what he called sexual undercurrents into the beatings he doled out to the boys, recalling, "It was all about making the boys as frightened as possible. The whole process of being punished was ritualistic and barbaric." Spencer alleged that he was subjected to regular beatings and at age 11 was sexually abused by an assistant matron who habitually slept with the boys. He estimated that she was 19 or 20 at the time.
I try and explain this to people. People think, "Oh, lucky you, you're seduced," but not at 11. You're a child.
The childhood trauma from that abuse, he claimed, came to manifest itself when he became an adult, telling The Times, "It killed a part of me. It killed the gentler part of me. We had demons sewn into the linings of our souls." In 1992, John Spencer, Princess Diana and Charles's father, died at age 68 after suffering a heart attack while hospitalized in London to treat pneumonia. According to his obituary in the Washington Post, he'd been in ill health for some time, having suffered a stroke in 1978. The after effects of that stroke could be seen in his unsteady gait when walking his daughter down the aisle during her royal wedding to then Prince Charles in 1981. In her memoir, Diana, her true story in her own words, Diana opened up about how severely the stroke had affected him, recalling, "He was one person before and he was certainly a different person after." At the time of John's death, the Post reported he had allegedly created a rift with his children by selling valuable art, furniture and silverware from Althorp in order to afford the vast expanse of maintaining the massive home and its expansive grounds. Charles was shocked and shaken by his father's death, believing he was on the road to recovery and would be returning home shortly.
I very much regret, and it's a matter of regret for the rest of us, that nobody was with him when he died.
The British monarchy was rocked to its core by the revelations that Princess Diana spilled in her explosive 1995 interview with journalist Martin Bashir. What the public hadn't known at the time was that her brother Charles had been integral in placing Diana with Bashir. What Spencer didn't come to learn until years later was that he'd been conned by Bashir. Writing for the Daily Mail about what took place, Spencer claimed that Bashir contacted him about a potential interview with Diana. Bashir brandished bank statements he alleged were proof that someone on his sister's staff had been leaking confidential secrets about her to British tabloids. However, Spencer became suspicious when he set up a meeting between Bashir and Diana and felt there were discrepancies between what Bashir told her and what the journalist had told him. Nevertheless, Diana agreed to the interview. According to Spencer, "I was told of underhand payments, of spying and of appalling deception, but all along, I was the one being deceived in order for Mr. Bashir to get to my late sister." As the Sunday Times reported, a source confirmed Spencer's contention that he would never have set things in motion had it not been for those bogus bank statements. The source added, "Without Spencer, Bashir wouldn't have got to her." When Princess Diana died, Charles was in Cape Town, South Africa. As he recalled during a 1999 interview with Larry King Live, he received a phone call from his home in England, telling him the news that Diana had been in a car crash. He immediately turned on CNN and breathed a sigh of relief when initial reports at the time erroneously claimed she'd been able to walk away from the accident. While he desperately continued watching in hopes of an update, one of his sisters called to reveal that the situation was significantly worse than what had been reported. In fact, she revealed there were fears that the princess had suffered brain damage. He then called his other sister, whose husband worked for Queen Elizabeth II. While they spoke, she told Spencer that her husband was on the other line.
I'll always remember hearing my brother-in-law Robert say, "Oh no." And then my sister Jane said, "I'm afraid that's it. I'm afraid she's dead."
Spencer then broke the news to his children, who were with him in Cape Town, that their beloved aunt had died. And it was awful. And then having these little children crying with me, it was just desperate, really. Charles has never wavered in his belief that the responsibility for his sister's death lies with the tabloid's relentless pursuit of her. He made that clear in the scathing statement he issued following the fatal accident. It would appear that every proprietor and editor of every publication that has paid for intrusive and exploitative photographs of her, encouraging greedy and ruthless individuals to risk everything in pursuit of Diana's image, has blood on their hands today. The shaken Spencer was enlisted to play a major role in Princess Diana's funeral, which included delivering her eulogy. Writing for The Guardian, Spencer detailed his preparation, noting that an early draft of his speech contained a tirade about the greedy media moguls who profited from Diana's life and death. When some of his advisors read the eulogy, they advised him to delete that part. As Spencer recalled, "I agreed with them. This was to be about Diana." Decades later, Spencer came to the conclusion that Diana's death had positively impacted how tabloids treat celebrities.
The industry that supports the paparazzi really consider more carefully what it could and couldn't do.
In the days after Diana's death, Charles Spencer experienced more than overwhelming grief. He went through a full range of emotions that also included rage and guilt, feeling remorse that he hadn't been able to somehow prevent the accident. As Spencer said in a 2017 interview with People, "I was furious. I wasn't just angry. I thought, what could I have done? But you always think, God, I wish I could have protected her. It was devastating. I always felt intensely protective towards her." Those remarks, however, caused consternation with some former royal staffers. As the Daily Mail reported, those one-time members of the royal household deemed him to be hypocritical due to a report that he'd allegedly denied his sister's request to stay in a small cottage at Althorp to escape the non-stop paparazzi barrage. Spencer was vindicated when the Times issued a retraction, with the newspaper tweeting that he did indeed offer his sister a number of properties for her to stay in. The newspaper went on to write, "It was wrong to suggest he had refused to help his sister. We did not intend to suggest that the Earl was to blame for his sister's death." As a child of divorce, Charles initially didn't have much luck with matrimony himself, as his first two marriages ended in divorce. He popped the question to fashion model Victoria Lockwood just 6 weeks after they met, and they were married in 1989. The couple welcomed 4 children and moved to her native South Africa. Sadly, the two divorced in 1997. A few years later, he remarried, tying the knot with Caroline Freud in 2001. They had 2 children together before they split in 2006, with Spencer reportedly leaving Freud for another woman just 4 months after she gave birth to their second child. She was said to be devastated, with the Express reporting she was granted a fast divorce on the grounds of his, quote, unreasonable behaviour. A few years later, he became engaged to Lady Bianca Elliott, but eventually called it off. He married for the 3rd time in 2011 to Karen Gordon. This time, Spencer seemed to have gotten it right. As of 2024, the two remain married. Looking back, Spencer believed that the underlying issues that led to his divorces were the result of the psychological damage inflicted when he was sexually abused at boarding school. As he told The Guardian, "I don't think I developed emotionally in those early years as would have been the case in a loving home with actively loving adults." During the course of his first 2 marriages, Charles Spencer became the father of 6 children. Some of them, however, have reportedly had their issues with him over the years. This apparently had to do with his extramarital affair with TV journalist Colleen Sullivan. According to the Mail, Spencer's 4 older children from his first marriage were quite fond of his second wife, Caroline Freud, and were reportedly appalled by the way he ended things with her. In fact, upon learning that Sullivan would be joining Spencer while he celebrated Christmas with them in Cape Town, the kids refused to come if Sullivan was there. He wound up checking her into a hotel. Meanwhile, his absence from the 2021 wedding of his daughter, Lady Kitty Spencer, hinted at a rift between father and daughter. As a source told the Daily Mail, Kitty and Charles were very close when she was growing up, but their relationship has cooled and been more distant since his marriage to his 3rd wife, Karen, in 2011. Interestingly, Spencer was also a no-show when his other daughter, Lady Amelia Spencer, married Greg Mallet in 2023. Spencer hasn't publicly revealed why he wasn't present for his daughter's nuptials. In March 2023, Charles Spencer faced another death in his family when his aunt, Maria Cynthia Burke Roche, died at the age of 88. As her obituary in the Sunday Times recalled, Roche had a brief business career but was best remembered for being the outspoken aunt of Princess Diana. In fact, Roche once stated that the real culprit behind Charles and Diana's failed marriage wasn't his affair with Camilla Parker Bowles, but the 13-year difference in their ages. As Roche told the Daily Mail in 2017, they were at very different stages of development. Diana was young and had limited life experience, and Prince Charles was already a great thinker. He read a great deal. They were perhaps different people. If you or someone you know may be the victim of child abuse, please contact the Child Help National Child Abuse Hotline at 1-800-4A-CHILD, 1-800-422-4453, or contact their live chat services.